Welcome to Spiritual Calisthenics. Christ is in our midst. On January 27th, we commemorate the removal of the holy relics of St. John Chrysostom, Archbishop of Constantinople, St. Peter the Righteous of Egypt, and St. Demetrios, the new martyr of Constantinople. Regarding the removal of the relics of St. John Chrysostom, Archbishop of Constantinople, this event took place on this day in the year 438, when St. Theodosius the Younger had been emperor for 30 years. He was the son of Arcadius and Eudoxia, who had exiled St. John. The Archbishop of Constantinople at that time was Proclus, who had been the saint's disciple. The grace of your words illumined the universe like a shining beacon. It amassed treasures of munificence in the world. It demonstrated the greatness of humility, teaching us by your own words, therefore, O Father John Chrysostom, intercede to Christ the Logos for the salvation of our souls. The holy and august Church is mystically glad today on the translation of your holy relics. And though she had kept them hidden in concealment like precious gold, by your intercessions she unceasingly grants unto them that praise you the divine grace of healing, O Father John Chrysostom.
Regarding St. John Chrysostom, Archbishop of Constantinople, this greatest and most beloved of all Christian orders was born in Antioch in the year 344 or 347. His pious parents were called Secundus and Anthusa. After his mother was widowed at the age of 20, she devoted herself to bringing up John and his elder sister in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. John received his literary training under Anthragathius, the philosopher, and Libanius, the sophist, who was the greatest Greek scholar and rhetorician of his day. Libanius was a pagan, and when asked before his death whom he wished to have for his successor, he said, "John, had not the Christians stolen him from us?" With such training, with such gifts as he had by nature, John had before him a brilliant career as a rhetorician. A rhetorician, for those that are not aware, is somebody that is based in logic and able to argue. Part of the argument is rhetoric, meaning you establish a baseline and say, okay, you agree on this, I agree on this, and we both agree on this. But from this common plane, let's make our arguments to see if we can have an agreement. But through the good example of his godly mother Anthusa and of the holy bishop Meletius of Antioch, by whom he was ordained reader about the year 370, he chose instead to dedicate himself to God. From the years 374 to 381, he lived the monastic life in the hermitages that were near Antioch. His extreme asceticism undermined his health, compelling him to return to Antioch, where St. Meletius ordained him deacon about the year 381. St. Meletius was called to Constantinople later that year to preside over the Second Ecumenical Council, during which he fell asleep in the Lord. In 386, Bishop Flavian ordained John presbyter of the Church of Antioch. Upon his elevation to the priesthood, his career as a public preacher began, and his exceptional oratorical gifts were made manifest through his many sermons and commentaries. There are a couple of things that are important for us to understand here. First, St. John and St. Basil the Great were contemporaries, and St. John Chrysostom wrote a book on the holy priesthood in which he has a dialogue with St. Basil the Great as to why he should not enter into the priesthood, showing us that St. John Chrysostom had such reverence for the holy priesthood and for the work of the priesthood that he felt he was ill-equipped, though he has a prayerful humility in everything that he does. His commentaries and sermons were distinguished by their eloquence and the remarkable ease with which rich imagery and scriptural allusions are multiplied by their depth of insight into the meaning of Scripture and the working of God's providence, not least of all by their earnestness and moral force, which issue from the heart of a blameless and guileless man who lived first what he preached to others. It is also understood, if you look at the skull of St. John Chrysostom, that his ear is still intact on the skull, even though the rest of the skull, of course, has vanished after his death. This ear is intact because it is said that St. Paul and angels whispered to him the true meaning of what was written, so that St. John Chrysostom clearly understood. Chrysostom literally means golden mouth, because he was so eloquent in everything that he preached. It was like gold pouring forth from his mouth. Because of his fame, he was chosen to succeed St. Nectarios as Patriarch of Constantinople. He was taken away by stealth to avoid the opposition of the people and consecrated Patriarch of Constantinople on February 28, 398 by Theophilus, Patriarch of Alexandria, who was to prove his mortal enemy. At that time, the Emperor of the East was Arcadius, who had St. Arsenius the Great as his tutor. Arcadius was a man of weak character and much under the influence of his wife Eudoxia. The zealous and upright Chrysostom's unsparing censures of the lax morals in the imperial city stung the vain Eudoxia. Through Theophilus' plotting and her collaboration, St. John was banished to Pontus in 403. The people were in an uproar, and the following night an earthquake shook the city. This so frightened the Empress Eudoxia that she begged Arcadius to call Chrysostom back. While his return was triumphant, his reconciliation with the Empress did not last long. When she had a silver statue of herself erected in the Forum before the Church of the Holy Wisdom, St. Sophia, September 403, and had it dedicated with much unseemly revelry, St. John thundered against her, and she could not forgive him. In June of 404, he was exiled to Cucusus, on the borders of Sicilia and Armenia. From here, he exchanged letters with Pope Innocent of Rome, who sent bishops and priests to Constantinople requesting that a council be held. St. John's enemies, dreading his return, prevailed upon the emperor to see an insult in this, and had John taken to a more remote place of banishment called Idius, near Caucasus. The journey was filled with bitter sufferings for the aged bishop, both because of the harshness of the elements and the cruelty of one of his 310 guards. He did not reach Pityus, but gave up his soul to the Lord near Comana, in Pontus, at the chapel of the martyr Basilicus, who had appeared to him shortly before, foretelling the day of his death, which came to pass on September 14th, 407. His last words were, "Glory be to God for all things." His holy relics were brought from Comana to Constantinople 31 years later by the Emperor Theodosius the Younger, and St. Pulcheria, his sister, the children of Arcadius and Evdoxia, with fervent supplications that the sin of their parents against him be forgiven. This return of his holy relics is celebrated on January 27th. St. John was surnamed Chrysostom, Golden-Mouthed, because of his eloquence. He made exhaustive commentaries on the divine scriptures, and was the author of more works than any other church father, leaving us complete commentaries on the books of Genesis, the Gospels of Saints Matthew and John, the Acts, and all the epistles of St. Paul. The extant works are 1,447 sermons and 240 epistles. 22 teachers of the church have written homilies of praise in his honor. Besides his feast day today and on January 27th, he is celebrated as one of the three hierarchs on January 30th, together with St. Basil the Great, St. Gregory the Theologian. It should be noted that because September 14th is the exaltation of the cross, the saint's memory has been transferred to this day. The grace of your words illumined the universe like a shining beacon. It amassed treasures of munificence in the world. It demonstrated the greatness of humility, teaching us by your own words. Therefore, O Father John Chrysostom, intercede to Christ the Logos, the salvation of our souls. You received the divine grace from heaven, and by your own lips taught all to worship the one God in Trinity. All blessed venerable John Chrysostom, deservedly we praise you, for you are teacher, clearly revealing things divine.
From St. Paul's letter to the Hebrews. Brethren, it was fitting that we should have such a high priest, holy, blameless, unstained, separated from sinners, exalted above the heavens. He has no need, like those high priests, to offer sacrifices daily, first for their own sins, and then for those of the people. He did this once and for all when he offered up himself. Indeed, the law appoints men in their weakness as high priests, but the word of the oath, which came later than the law, appoints a son who has been made perfect forever. Then the point of what we are saying is this: we have such a high priest, one who is seated at the right hand of the throne of majesty in heaven, a minister in the sanctuary and the true tent, which is set up not by man, but by the Lord. This new priest, the priesthood of Melchizedek, is the priesthood of the Orthodox clergy. And every bishop represents Christ on earth as a stand-in, an analog for that. And every priest, when he is serving liturgy, venerates the name of the bishop under whom he is serving on the antimension, which is over the holy altar, and therefore acts as legate for that bishop who is a stand-in for Christ. St. John Chrysostom, as such a stand-in, resembles Christ in every way in his humility and his love. From the Matins Gospel. The Lord said to the Jews who came to him, "Truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the gatekeeper opens. Sheep hear his voice. And he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he's brought all of his own, he goes before them. The sheep follow him, for they know his voice. A stranger they will not follow. They will flee from him, for they do not know the voice of strangers." This figure Jesus used with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. But Jesus again said to them, Truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not heed them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. Showing us that Jesus Christ, as our high priest, he is the door by which we enter into paradise. We are the sheep. We hear his voice. And as sheep, we follow after the shepherd. Christ is our shepherd. The priest symbolizes the lead sheep. The lead sheep, if you ever go to a farm, has a little bell around his neck. And that sheep follows the shepherd. When the shepherd calls, that sheep goes, the other sheep follow him. The liturgy gospel continues. The Lord said, I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He was a hireling and not a shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees. The wolf snatches them, scatters them. He flees because he's a hireling, cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. This shows us exactly who Christ is. He is the good shepherd. He is the one who looks for each individual person, no matter how far that person has fallen, and he goes, and he calls for him, and he saves him. And I have other sheep that are not of this fold. I must bring them also, and they will heed my voice. Meaning that not only to the people of Israel, but also to the Gentiles, and to all the world. All the people that are seeking after Christ will heed his voice and follow him. So there shall be one flock, one shepherd. I hope that you've enjoyed today's Spiritual Calisthenics. Have a blessed and wonderful day.